Hello and welcome to the Arsenal BiteSize Podcast. We're here to preview the Southampton match on Sunday, another tough away fixture, and have a quick look at the match last night versus PSV at the Emirates. How are you doing, Clayton? Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Yeah, all good. Nice, another nice win last night. And thought it was a really good performance, really controlled, just dominated them, really. Never felt in doubt. They didn't really lay a glove on us. Probably should have scored more, to be honest. Nothing to complain about yesterday, and job done. Just go win the group now.
I think 13 out of 14 games we've won this season. Best win percentage in Europe. So we take that all day long.
And that's what, I know there's like Europa stat padding in there, but like there's other top teams that aren't there for a reason, right? And I think the consistency to win while making so many changes, I think, is really underrated. So, yeah, really happy with yesterday, and that Jesus and Saka just put on an absolute clinic. Like you could tell that level was easy for them. Not much more to add on that. To be honest, I just hope we sort of go out to PSV and actually just try win that group. I think if we beat them, we win the group, or need a point or something.
Yeah, I think we need 2 points to win the group. So as long as, and we got what, two games left?
We do, yeah. So we've got PSV away, and then we've got Zurich at home. So yeah, just need to win that group, so then we don't have to bother with the kind of what is it? It's like the round.
It's like a two-legged tie, yeah. So you've got to play home and away in January, which is already going to be congested with the World Cup season. No, thank you. And obviously, there's some pretty good teams who are finishing third in their Champions League group who would drop down. So
exactly,
it would be ideal to get a bye through to the last 16. But I think my only thing to add to yesterday was that, I guess, unlike the 2 games before it, which we also won just about, it felt much more like a kind of dominating, patient approach from champion team. Like we were never really above 60%, but they had no chance to kind of really beat us there. Like it didn't feel like they were going for any opportunities there. So I think like we could have scored more. Obviously on the day we didn't, but compared to the other 2 where they were like 2 away games and we were like defending for our lives to get those wins, I think there was very different skill sets required. And
it felt so comfortable yesterday. Like even in my seat, I barely got out of my seat in the stadium, and like I get very emotive and stuff. It just felt very controlled. And do you know what? This sounds so like this is proper first world problem, but it was so not because I've been sat with the Ashburton Army for the last couple of games, and then the one before that where I was in my season ticket seat was the Spurs game. Like the last few games have been so emotional and like draining and quite just exactly that. And it was quite nice to just go sit there, watch a game of football that just felt really controlled and comfortable, and just watch some nice football. So yeah, it was good. It was nice to go to the football and just be able to chill.
Yeah, no, I think it's nice to be back in your tactical seat where you can see the whole game unfold like a chess match.
Bird's eye view.
But yeah, let's go to the Southampton match. Quick shout out to some of the guys who've tuned in live. So William Frick, good to see you, mate. So he's saying if we beat Zurich, we win the group. I think Christopher Teller's good to see you as well. He's saying if we draw against PSV, we should win the group. So it's pretty much there. Like I think we're at the point now where we can just kind of start to rest some players, and I think this is what we would have expected, right? So we've got the Chelsea game sandwiched in between 2 Europa ties.
So that's why we want to get this secured ASAP, because if we can just go into Chelsea fully focused on that game, and like the one thing I've said before was my worry about the Europa competition wasn't the kind of Thursday to Sunday schedule, because in the group stage you rotate so much. It was more your mental preparation for the week. We've gone from just mentally preparing and analyzing the opponent 1 game a week to having 2 in a week essentially. And I think that's where, if you've just got your mental focus on Chelsea, because we just need to take each Premiership game 1 game at a time, but obviously we've all got one eye on that one, right? So that would be huge.
No, definitely. I think that would be our last kind of remaining tough game in these 4 Prem games to go. Like obviously Southampton away isn't easy either, and
they're our bogey team, aren't they?
Yeah, I still remember Boxing Day 4-0 when they had 9 losses either side of playing us.
Oh no, I don't know what it is. Like I feel like narratives like bogey teams are like chucked out there quite a lot, and I've done it myself. And I wanted to check, so I checked the head-to-head record, right? It's not great. So in the previous 24 matches against Southampton, we've only won 11 of them, so just short of 50%. So we won 46% of them, and they've beat us 7 times.
So
29%.
it's not even draws there. Like they're getting
and
wins. Yeah.
and there's been 6 draws. So yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I don't really buy into like narratives like that, because I do think historical records for me are useless, because I feel like you analyze and assess the teams in their current situation. Like Arsenal versus Southampton 8 years ago is a different fixture to Arsenal Southampton today. But I don't know
Yeah.
what it is. I've got it in my head like they are a bogey team. So yeah, we'll see how we get on. But should we get into
Yeah, we'll
predicted
see how we
lineups?
get on. I'll get the lineups on the screen and we'll read them out for the podcast. Listen, just a couple shout outs more. So Pontus Johansson, good to see you. Thanks for tuning in live. And Bobby Love, good to see you. Beautiful.
Hello, mate. All right, guys.
So let's go to the
Who was that to?
predicted
Was that to you or me?
Yeah, I guess it wasn't plural, was it? So
No, he thinks one of us are butters.
I'm assuming after your day out with him for the away game in Newcastle last season, you might be the beautiful. But
No, I think after that I'm the ugly one. So
so we've got 2 predicted lineups on the screen, just because we had a bit of a contentious point there on the left back position. So Tierney versus Tomiyasu. The rest of the team is the same team that we've seen start the last few Prem games. So it's Ramsdale, White, Saliba, Gabriel, Partey, Odegaard, Xhaka, Jesus Martinelli, and then Saka is obviously like apparently got a knock, but it sounds like neither of us are kind of thinking it's that serious. Just
it's
based
the
on
one
fact
we
he
see
played on.
every few weeks, right? Like he gets battered, and do you know what? His durability? I don't want to bloody jinx it now, but his durability is so good. But you see it in so many games. He gets kicked so often. And I think as like fans from the outside, we don't realize they are impactful kicks. Like they would hurt. And he did limp off, and like I saw him, he was limping around the side, but he'll be fine. I would be astonished if he wasn't in the starting 11 on Sunday.
Did you see the interview with Arteta about him? So about whether he's worried about him like playing, and he was kind of like, no, like the best players in the world play 70 games, and that's what I expect from him if he wants to become one of the best players in the world, basically.
I loved it. I absolutely
loved hearing that. Like the way that he's telling Saka, like, these are the standards I want you to play by. Like, I'm not looking to rest you. Like, and I think that's quite good, because I think you're a young player. Like, imagine if Saka was like, oh, it's AstroTurf tonight in in the Arctic Circle. Yeah, I'll just take a rest. Like, I don't want to play. Fuck that. But instead, he's teaching him, like,
he's
no,
drumming
mate,
it
like,
into
you're playing every game. Like, if you can walk, you will play. And he's played the most minutes of anyone for us. Like, I think last season he had minutes in all 38 league games, like somewhere as a sub, but still, it's honestly just incredible to see his attitude, I suppose. And he said, there's players getting 40 goals, 50 goals. He was like 50 goals in a season. He goes, you can't score 50 goals in a season if you play 30 games.
Yeah.
So again, I just loved hearing all that from Arteta. So I'm pretty confident of Saka. So then to the left back situation then, is there anything in your kind of research? I know we'll look at the Southampton lineup in a second too, but is there anything based on the way they've been setting up lately under Hasenhüttl that would make you, I guess, more inclined for Tomiyasu? Because I think that's kind of where you've gone different to my pick with Tierney, right?
Yeah. So one thing I'll start with caveating is my left back. So I'm the one that thinks Tomiyasu will play left back, and it's very 50-50 in my head. Like I'm really struggling to work it out. So what I always try to do is try to apply like rationale and logic to it. And it's similar to what and why I thought Tommy would play left back at Leeds, and obviously he did. And I know he struggled, and like he didn't perform great against Leeds. Let's be honest. He did really well last night at right back, but against Leeds he really struggled, both technically and I was going to say tactically. I don't think it was tactically, just technically on the ball. His first touch wasn't there and his passing wasn't as great. But going before the Leeds game, what I thought was obviously we did the research and we saw Leeds. Everyone knows about their intensity and their pressing, but that felt kind of overlooked going into the game, I think, because of how good we'd been. And then when we looked into the stats, it was like they were the best team in the league for pressures, which is regaining possession within 5 seconds of applying pressure and stuff. And that made me think that in a game like that, I think Zinchenko would start any day of the week. Because
I think we were really missing him in a match like that.
Yeah.
Like, he just had like the control and calmness to be there and not get dominated, because they dominated the center of the field. Like we saw that passing network, they just piled their whole team into our midfield.
Yeah, exactly that. And I think against a team like that, you need technical security. You need someone that's brave on the ball, that can take it down when you're like a rabbit in the headlights and everyone's pressing you. You need to be able to just have your head up, pick out a pass, and just be calm. And that's why I think where Zinchenko was injured, I went for Tommy, because for me, he is the one that can replicate, not to the same level, but as closely to that in that left back area. I think Tierney he's doing really well. He performed well last night, but his first touch and his calmness on the ball isn't quite to the same level, in my opinion. And like we've seen it quite often, if we're under the cosh, he's an old school defender. He will hoof it, and you don't need that in games like this. So that is why, despite Tommy struggling last week, I still think Arteta will go for it. And the reason why is Southampton, from my research, were quite similar to Leeds statistically. So what I always like to do is, in terms of predicting how a game flow, game state might go, is I look to see like different key bits of information. So like, how many chances do they create? What's their pressures? What style of play do they apply? And Southampton are the second best team in the league for applying pressures in the like middle third. So they're only second to Leeds. So obviously that in itself is going to be a tricky matchup. So you saw how Leeds pressed us. They packed out the centre. They blocked the passing lanes. They suffocated everything. Southampton are going to look to do that. And I think if you're looking at the middle third, that's where it's going to be the likes of Partey, Odegaard, Ben White if he tucks in, whoever's at left back tucked in, Tierney, Tomiyasu. They're going to need to be very press resistant, because then if you can beat that press in the middle third, this is what was interesting. The drop off between the difference between Leeds and Southampton, they both press the middle third like really high. They're the best. They're the first and second team in the league at doing that. Leeds are the only one out of the two of them that maintain it in the attacking third. So when we're in the attacking third, and we saw it, like Jesus, I'd say one of his biggest attributes is he likes doing what Laka does. Like he'll twerk on a centre back, but the difference is this guy twerks, but his hips can move as well. So like he'll twerk on you, and then he'll pivot and he'll go. But he couldn't do that against Leeds because the way they pressed our attacking third was phenomenal. And the difference with Southampton is statistically they're 12th for that. So they press the middle third. And if we can beat that press, if we're press resistant, and you get the ball into the likes of Jesus, Saka, Martinelli, who are brilliant with like back to goal, they can pivot. I think that's where we'll get some joy. And that for me all stems from going back to the left back, who is a key component in this. And that's why I think we need Tomiyasu in there, because I think whoever plays left back will be inverting a lot in this game. And they'll need to be very press resistant to beat that middle third press and try and find the pass, which can then progress up the field quite quickly.
I suppose in terms of like minutes in their legs as well. So obviously Tomiyasu, he got subbed off early last night.
Exactly.
That it's almost like, is that a hint? I know we thought that about Tierney when Tierney got subbed off early the time before, and then Tomiyasu started out, and no one predicted it against.
Was that for the Liverpool game? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we've seen it go both ways, where like the early sub doesn't necessarily for Arteta mean that you start the next one, but we'll see, because I know Tierney's probably feeling quite upset that he's not playing. I think his whole career, wherever he's been like a regular starter, played in all the big games. I do think what's interesting is that if you look at over the course of the rest of this season and the way we're utilizing these players and giving them minutes off the bench in different competitions, I have a theory that essentially, like, by using Tierney like this, more ad hoc, although he might not like it because he's not like seen as the out and out starter, I reckon it will prevent him getting injuries as often, and he will actually end up playing more minutes for Arsenal this season in all competitions than the seasons before, where he was the nailed-on starter. So even though he might not be happy about it, I would look at it as that with the introduction of 5 subs, players' roles in football have changed. And it was what we said that Clive says from Arsenal Vision about starters and finishers. I honestly believe that this is probably better for Tierney because it's less likely he breaks down, and he will end up playing a bigger part in a very long season that we need him in. The last thing we want is him to be out for the rest of the season. So
that's a great point.
I do like that. And I think maybe with that in mind, now I'm leaning more towards your Tomiyasu pick, but I've already submitted my predicted lineup to Emma Jump the Wave. So, and I just tried to click edit response, but the form is reloaded. So
just to add on to your point, by the way, because that's a brilliant point, and I hadn't thought of it like that, and I do agree. But just to add to that, I think the difference with this first half of the season compared to previous years, usually when you have European competitions, they come around like every couple of weeks, right? But because of the World Cup and the schedule, we're playing European competition and Premier League every week. So the difference is the players like Tierney, they usually wouldn't play for like 2 weeks. Whereas now they are playing every week because we've got the Premier League game. So let's just say hypothetically, Tomiyasu, he'll play left back on the Sunday, Tierney on the following Thursday, and that will keep repeating until the World Cup. So they've still got one game a week, even though, like you said, he's not the recognised starting left back. Whereas in previous seasons, the European competitions are spread out. So like they've got that it's never 3 weeks. They've got that 2 weeks to wait in between games. So it's like if whoever's first choice left back plays the Premier League game, the backup one isn't necessarily playing for another 2 weeks. So that's where I think this year it's a bit easier as well. Although the schedule is relentless, it's easier to manage morale in that sense because I think they're playing consistently more often. So yeah, that's
I think
another
just
thing.
before we look at Southampton's thing as well, I just wanted to pick up on some stuff Jack has said. So obviously last time we spoke, we talked about his character and speaking to Gabriel after the incident where he kicked out. We have recently seen that the I think it's the Professional Footballers Association, the PFA, held like a coaching training, and the likes of El Neni, Xhaka, Holding, they were all there, like giving training to the youth, and getting coaching badges. So it is really nice seeing like this turnaround, this redemption arc from Xhaka, but not just like on the pitch, but I really want to call him out for his off the pitch stuff. So like, he's very honest in his interviews to the media. If you remember last season when we lost one of those 2 out of 3 games at the end of the season, he came out and he actually said, if you're not like able to play 100%, just don't come to the fucking stadium. And people called him out for that, right? But
Gary Neville and
but imagine if Zaha or Madison said that to the media, they'd be like, oh, it's so refreshing that this guy's honest and not just reading
exactly.
So I think what he said then was still true. He holds the club himself, and in training we hear he trains at a world-class level. He holds them all accountable to be at their very best. So that culture we see, that we're saying Jesus has also brought that winner's mentality. Xhaka's 30-year-old captain of Switzerland. Like, he's got hundreds of caps. He's a very established guy. And I think just that level of experience, it's needed around these young players. And he's the one who goes and regularly talks to people. But it's just his most recent interview, just to kind of then finalize this, was that he has now come out and kind of said, of course, like, we know there's only 4 games till the break. And of course, we want to do everything we can to be top of this table going into that break. We'll enjoy the break. We'll reassess. We'll come back with new ideas. And I'm like, yeah, that's pretty cool. And when you look at it that way, we're 4 Premier League games anyway. There's obviously the Cup game and the Europa. So 7 games in total. But we're not many games away from being able to reinforce this squad. And I do wonder if you look at the Leeds game, we were talking about what we were surprised that kind of Jesus didn't get subbed earlier and stuff. I do wonder if Arteta didn't feel he had what he needed to come off the bench and keep that game won. So I wonder if him, Edu, the board, they've looked at this and thought, you know what, like, this period has told us that if we want to continue the way we've started this season, we will need to strengthen in January. So I really hope that they're starting to already look at targets, use the 6-week break to speak to agents. It's very unique. You get such a long period to negotiate in the middle of a season. And I'd really like us to see us capitalize on that.
I think
that's just the thing. Yeah, I really hope we capitalize on that. And let's try to do what Xhaka said. Let's go through these next 4 Prem games. Let's show what we're made of. We've got a 4-point gap. We could still be top going into Christmas, even with a loss against Chelsea, right? Like that's the situation we're in. Like,
it's true. Yeah, I think we will in January. And the reason I'm fairly confident is I feel like from Arteta's noises in the summer and everything he's spoken about, the quantity of people he wants in the squad and just everything he talks about, I think he felt we were 2 players short anyway as a group, my personal opinion. So, and that was going into the season.
He wanted numbers, didn't he, on the last few days?
Let alone how well we've done. So, but yeah, that's one for another time.
So for Southampton, there's obviously you've put their lineups from Bournemouth and West Ham. This reminded me of Maitland-Niles. I'd kind of forgotten about him until I saw these. So they've obviously got the Bazanu in goal every week. They've got Walker Peters right back. They've rotated between Kaleta Carr and Bella Kotchap. They've got Salisu, always there. Pero's always there. You got Aribo, Ward-Prowse, Maitland-Niles, El Yanusi, and then you've got Adams and Armstrong as the kind of front 2. So they're playing this kind of 4-4-2. I think again, there's someone whose manager Hassan Hutor is kind of in that short list of who will be sacked next. It's kind of it was him, Rodgers, and Gerrard is now gone. So I think he is walking on a tightrope, and I never like to play against teams that are in a
No.
corner fighting for their lives at their home stadium. So
Well, it could go two ways, right? Look at Villa. But
that's true.
so,
Yeah, it could go
yeah,
two ways. What do you think about these guys? And so obviously, I know you looked into them more. We talked about kind of how they're second to Leeds in the top two for the pressures in the kind of middle third, but they don't maintain that in the final third, like where we are attacking them. So, do you reckon then Jesus should have a bit more fortune in this game compared to last time against Leeds?
I think so. I think for me the biggest thing is, like I said, just firstly on their lineups, obviously Maitland-Niles is on loan, right? So
Yeah.
their likely replacement, I'd guess, would probably be. I don't know if Lavia's fit, but if he
I
is
think
fit, I think
he's
it'll be
injured.
Lavia.
Yeah. So he
Oh,
was
so
the
if
Man City player, right? That went there. I
yeah,
think,
so then it'll probably be Diallo that comes in, I imagine. But system-wise, they play the same. Yeah, like you said, you touched on how they play and stuff, and how that will impact us is, like I said, I'm just repeat myself really. I think if we can just kind of go to this team and play our game, and they'll press us in the middle parts of the pitch, absolutely. And I think the Leeds game was a combination of Leeds made it so difficult for us to get out, but there were people that had off days as well. And when you've got a combination like that, you're absolutely up against it. So I think on Sunday, we know what we're going to expect. Like, we know how Southampton are going to press us in midfield, and when any of our fullbacks invert, like they'll take it in turns. If we can be on it technically on Sunday and just beat the press, get the ball into the likes of Jesus where he's rotating across the front line, and if he can be technically secure and just combine with Saka and Martinelli, like I really think Sunday is going to be tough, but I think it could be quite simplistic in how we get joy in their attacking third. Because then obviously I like to go into detail and analyzing like potential matchups and stuff, but just taking it a level higher, if you look at their stats for just like non-penalty XG per 90 where they rank, and then what they concede, they're like, well, I've got it here. I could just double check quickly, but they're not great. And I think sometimes I overanalyze things, and sometimes you just don't need to. I think Sunday will be tough, but if you're looking at what they create per 90, they're the sixth worst team for non-penalty XG in the league. And then in terms of how much they concede, they are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They're the seventh worst team for non-penalty XG against. So I think it'll be interesting to see score predictions. I think it will be another intense game where we have to be really switched on, no mistakes, and just play our game how we know we can, and we should get the job done. But I think the key battle for me will be how we beat their press, if we can beat their press, because they will come for us in that midfield. But we should get some pockets in between half spaces. That zone 14 we looked at last week, I'm hoping to see a bit more joy in there on Sunday.
Yeah, no, that I'm looking forward to looking at the kind of the graphics after this match. Actually, when we do the review,
Yeah.
see how we do this time around. So, guys in the chat, do get your score predictions in as well as we give ours for this match. So this will be our 11th game, I guess.
Yeah,
Because we've also got
it's
two
come
in
around quick,
hand.
hasn't it?
Yeah, it's come around quick. We're getting close to a third of the season through. We are getting very close now. Because what, 38 games, about 12 and a half games. So after this game, we'll have played 12. We're going to be about a third of the way through the season, and we were top whatever happens in this match.
Yeah, I'm predicting like 90% of the correct outcomes. I think that's decent, to be fair. Like predicted 9 wins. Obviously, the one game against Man United, we predicted a draw. We'd lost, but like it was still a game we thought we'd drop points in. You're winning on the actual correct scores, so you've got 3 out of 10, right? I've got 2 out of 10 on that. But look at, we've predicted bang on the amount of goals. We both predicted 24 goals so far. We've scored 24. Goals against, you've predicted 5, and I've gone with 8, and we've conceded 10. So I don't think we're a million miles off with how we're going.
Cool. So in terms of predictions, I've put you on the spot, and you've gone first for the last 2. So I feel it's only fair I predict first this time.
Sure.
It's a tough one. I will go for. I'm going to go for 2-0 Arsenal.
Interesting. I've got the same. I think that's the I think that's the first correct score we've gone identical, maybe. I think
I feel like this whole kind of like traveling there and like I'm not convinced we can, like, I'd like to think we can score 3 goals, but I believe that if we go for a third, we will concede. So like for me, it's like a 2-0 or 3-1 kind of game. That's what I'm going for. I think in the chat they've pretty much gone the same. Bobby's gone for a 1-1. I'll just put it up
1-1.
on the screen.
Interesting. Okay.
We got Christopher's gone for 2-0 Arsenal, 3-1 Arsenal for William, 2-0 from Pontus. There is some quotes as well. So before we just wrap up and say bye to everyone, I imagine some of these are a bit newer, but William saying that Arteta saying Zinchenko is in contention to face Southampton.
Oh wow.
So that's that could be interesting. I imagine it would be on the bench. To be fair, though, I think he's very cagey in his presses, and he even said before the PSV game, like, "Oh yeah, like Zinchenko isn't ruled out." Like he's been saying that for a while. Like we've not seen Zinchenko since October 1st against Tottenham. I have yet to see a photo of the guy anywhere near the pitch. So this whole like he's in contention, I think he's just going to roll out this line every week, and then suddenly he's going to be like, "Oh, Zinchenko suffered a setback in the Chelsea press," and then Zinchenko starts.
Hopefully it's not like Tomiyasu last year. I was thinking, I thought Tommy had like left the country. I was like, where the hell had he gone? But that's great news. Like, if it is correct, because then I've seen. Oh no, I think it's just Pontus replying to William. But yeah, if he is in contention, that's great. If he can be in the squad,
that'd be good. He says Martinelli's fine, and obviously he had a bit of a sickness or illness, and he came off the bench. So I think he's fine, and he believes Saka is fine as well following the knock. So team's looking good. Bobby saying it's a game we should win, but we are overdue a draw. Yeah, we don't seem to really do draws. We just win or lose, and part of me actually thinks that's really good because people don't kind of realize, I guess, that draws are really damaging.
Yeah, man, they are.
Like City only
we
just
were the
lost
king
their
of
first
draws
game,
for
right?
how many? Yeah,
But City have only just lost their first game, right? And they were behind us despite us having lost the game, and that's because they had more draws. I definitely think the 1 point you gain from a draw, you're gonna have to draw 3 times to get the points of a win.
Exactly.
Like that's the same as losing 2, winning 1. Drawing 3 is the same as losing 2, winning 1. So I think winning games in the Prem is very hard, and we have not been getting the credit we are due for that many wins.
This is probably a cop out. Like I'm sticking with my 2-0, and I think flow of the game. I don't know why. I think we're going to start very, very strong on Sunday. I think like you could see the difference in the performance yesterday, and I know it was a different team and we were at home, but I just think that Leeds game, I think Arteta will be fuming at that because that was backs against the wall, and I think we will come out strong. And I think Southampton will make it very tough for us, but I think we'll get one, and then there'll be like a cagey period, and we'll nick the second, and then I think we'll just try control the game. But again, what I was saying about if this is a cop out, if Bobby's prediction came in, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be happy, but I wouldn't be surprised.
I know what he means. Like it's the variance, right? Like at some point, surely statistically, like we have to like draw a game somewhere. Like surely we're not going to go a whole season without drawing. Like at some point.
Oh yeah, no, of course. But
what Christopher says, all or nothing Arsenal for a reason. So maybe we do just win and lose for the rest of the season.
I don't know. I just think like looking at that game at like I do agree. Like, obviously, we're not going to keep winning, but I think a game like Southampton, when you look at it rationally and you look at the stats, you look at the matchups, like I don't want to sound like rude or like arrogant, but we are a better team than them, and we should be. If we play our game and they play their top game, we should win. And yeah, I just think I agree. Like we probably are due a draw, but I think it will come in a game where the matchups are closer, if that makes sense.
I think Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, maybe.
Yeah, I'm not confident for that game as it is right now.
That one is a cagey game for sure. I can just see Oba trying to do a celebration if he scores. So let's make sure that doesn't happen. And on that note, guys, enjoy the rest of your Friday. Good luck to the Arsenal this weekend. May your arrows be green in FPL as well. Just 4 game weeks.
Yeah, we're both on wild card. So
yeah, I'm
just
excited.
Quickly before we wrap up, have you gone free Arsenal?
I have. So at the moment, I've got Ben White, I've got Martinelli still, and I've got Saka. But
same.
There is a part of me that's considering getting Jesus instead of Saka, despite the 4 yellow cards. I'm still going to think about that because I really want, like, there's some midfielders I really want to get access to, and I can't get them if I've got Saka. So I'm thinking about it. There is a temptation for triple attack, but if I'm predicting 2-0, it doesn't seem wise to like get 3 Arsenal attackers. So
I don't
we'll
know.
see.
Oh, well, yeah.
Well, we
that's
got
another one.
Bobby as well. He's on wildcard too, by the way. So we got
nice.
we got a big contingent of the AFC Bite Sizes mini league are going to suddenly rise up the ranks and
Yeah,
mix it up.
I hope I'm one of them because I'm embarrassing myself in my own podcast league. So,
Good. By the way, Bobby said it was beautiful to the podcast. It wasn't to a specific individual. So he got himself
so he
out
thinks
of
we're
that
both
hole real
ugly.
quick.
No.
Yeah, he got himself. He just likes the red logo. He doesn't care for us. But lovely to see everyone. Good to see you as always, Clayton. And we will see everyone on probably we'll do a Monday again, I guess. Like a
we'll have a
review.
chat either Sunday evening or Monday evening.
Yeah, Sunday
we'll
or Monday.
know.
Yeah, take care, guys.
Another
Enjoy
tough game. Up the Arsenal.
Yeah, up the Arsenal and enjoy the weekend, everyone.